I'm Seb. I'm part of the team here at DOSS. I lead everything partnerships for us, and I'm super happy to be here tonight with Antonio from DOSS. The idea of tonight, we've called it Off the Record. You might be able to figure out why. But the idea is that we create a space that is a little bit different. This is the first time we're doing this. We're not here to sell you. Antonio is definitely here to sell you. But it's really hard to go out and build a consumer brand, to go and deal with the operations of that, to deal with the fires as you scale it. It's really hard to find spaces where other people are going through this and you're able to openly and honestly talk about that. And so the whole idea behind tonight is that we have a conversation initially together about the trials and tribulations of building out DOSS into the nation's leading non-alcoholic, hopefully one day, brand, and what that's kind of taken to get there, also as an individual, how Antonio's kind of grown into this role here. And then open it up further for everybody else to volunteer things that you might want to know. A couple of things for tonight in terms of practical rules. One, we're going to try to keep this really tight and flowing as a conversation. We'll do questions, ideally at the end, just so we can kind of see where that takes us. The second thing is we are filming tonight. If you'd rather not be filmed, just let us know. Despite that, we're going to try to create an atmosphere where anything goes, which in Europe we call Chatham House rules. In the US, apparently it's Vegas rules. But the idea is, if there's things that you are struggling with and you want to talk through, feel free to do so here. We're honestly all here together. Last bit on DOSS before I kind of go into what we'll cover and introduce Antonio. The very short version of it is we have built a platform that helps fast-growing consumer brands grow faster, more profitably by getting on top of all the really difficult, hairy stuff that's involved with growing out a brand. We do that in a couple of really intelligent and smart ways that we built for several years. But in particular, what we actually do is, one, we inject a lot of AI into how you can run workflows, do data analysis, things like that. Two, our software is built in a way that it doesn't require you to go and adjust to it and adjust the entirety of your operations and be locked in. Instead, we try to go and mirror the very specific things that have made you successful that you have to deal with and reflect those so that it becomes a tool that helps you grow, not holds you back. And with that, I have spoken a lot. What we'll try to cover tonight in this session is, one, how it actually looks to be a fast-growing brand, what the pitfalls are, what the experience is like. Two, how to navigate those pitfalls with hopefully a couple of war stories. And then three, what role AI can play in that and which role it can't. With that, Antonio, do you want to take us away?
Yeah. Hey everyone, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. But just like Seb said, I think this platform for operators and people here talking about exactly what happens behind the scenes, we don't get it that often, and connecting with other operators, we don't really get out and about all that much, so it's nice to have that place and trying to cultivate something like that. And so I'll go into the war stories that DOSS as a brand has had. As much PR training, it's zero, as I had, so we'll see where it takes us. But I just want to start off by, if anybody doesn't know DOSS in general, it's a not... Oh, I was like, do you have a question already?
Great, we found our heckler.
DOSS is a non-alcoholic cocktail with adaptogens and botanicals founded by Katy Perry and Morgan McLaughlin. And our ethos is pleasure with restraint. And so our whole premise is, whether you're sober curious, or you're just wanting a break from drinking, we are trying to be the best tasting non-alcoholic one-stop shop in the US. And so we'll kick it off from there. And
cool. I guess, let's start off with you. Like, what's kind of the path that's taken you here? Give us a bit of color.
Yeah, my career path definitely wasn't linear. My undergrad was biology. I was ready to be a doctor and go med school route, but ended up working at Sun Life Organics during undergrad to pay for tuition, and was making smoothies. And so I was able to really see, and Sun Life Organics, for the people in LA probably know it, but it's a luxury smoothie and juice bar based out of Malibu, California, expanded to multiple states across the United States. And started there just blending and sourcing raw materials in the first location in Malibu. And really getting to see the kind of better for you space expand starting out in 2017. And so that was my first take on CPG. Eventually worked my way up through operations, doing new store development for them, and also taking on retail operations for the small retail sets we had. I'd walk the aisles of Erewhon and see what CPG brands were coming and better for you that we could stock at Sun Life in the retail portion, and see how customers interact in real time with better for you, especially in food and bev. Did that for about 5 years, managed multiple locations, moved to Florida, did a flagship location out there, everywhere from construction and grand openings. But restaurant scene is weekends, long nights, all that kind of stuff. So eventually I transitioned back over to my biology roots and worked with a plastic surgery under a private equity group, but they bought private practice plastic surgery offices, rolled them up into a big conglomerate. I would come in, redo their supply chain, implement a new HIPAA-compliant healthcare ERP system on the back end, and then just redo kind of operations for them and make sure that surgery was efficient and as cheap as possible. And then did that for about 2 years, and then got tapped by DOSS in 2024, early 2024. Been with them for about 2 years now, and beverage in general is tough, and taking all those perspectives from my career path there has been very, very interesting in how I operate, how I go about solving problems, looking at situations, and I'll get into some of those as we get through this chat.
Yeah, so I guess maybe immediately jumping onto that, right? Like before tonight, you kind of called it your tool belt. And
Yeah.
You sort of said, it's helped me get better at making decisions. Unpack that a bit for me.
Yeah, I would say because it wasn't so linear, I have in-person retail perspective that a lot of people, operators don't have. I've seen that customer experience in real time. And then I've also worked with big egos and seeing, in the healthcare space, you have these plastic surgeons who think they know how to run a business and they don't. And so I think taking all those different perspectives in different industries and applying it in an operations sense, because a lot of operations is copy and paste with nuance and edge cases. And so as you learn the edges and edge cases and nuances, applying that to beverage is very, very similar, I think, and especially with the healthcare portion. There's high stakes. People are being cut open. Beverage, we're making a drink at the end of the day. So looking at that, you have to take a step back as an operator. I know we get overwhelmed and it's a lot about trying to drink out of a fire hose and how much can you drink until you drowned. But looking back at it, looking at the industry and what I've done, we're making drinks, and that's the one thing. You can't get overwhelmed, and there's always going to be fires or terrible situations, and you have to do your best to be able to pivot, and then plan for the worst and hope for the best.
And so I'm gonna unpack that even a little bit more, right? So I know that's why you guys have grown tremendously in those 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Initially, when you first had issues with production or with retail, how did you go about solving them? Was it kind of instinct and prayers?
It was a lot of instinct and a lot of prayers and a lot of educated guesses, I would say, along the way. For instance, one of the stories when I first came into SWA, Target, everyone tries to get into Target, and that's like a big thing to do, right? We actually got into Target on an end cap, a single can promo, and we sold a bunch of inventory to Target. We're like, oh yeah, we did it. We're on end caps and all this kind of stuff, and we're like, okay, nationwide, cool. But it was a promo, an end cap promo, and any inventory that didn't sell, we had to buy back. Majority of that back in 2024 when non-alc was just taking off and buyer, confidence within this non-alc space wasn't there yet. Nothing sold, and we bought all this inventory back, and it was a huge hit. And I was coming in, and I'm like, where is all this expired inventory coming from? I'm like, what do we do with this? And I'm like, this is crazy. Recovered. And went the traditional route, K-Heat, Unify, like a lot of food and bev brands do, and then slowly started working on our distribution network, market by market, store by store, banner by banner, and eventually went nationwide with Target with Tre Rosé, which is our sparkling rosé, and then eventually Spritz Italiano in 2 SKUs, and then eventually Oat Margarita, and now our Variety 6-pack, which is really, really exciting. But they're terrible stories behind getting into Target. And it's not all LinkedIn posts at the end of the day of, hey, we made it,
But you did.
We did, eventually.
And so when you're kind of there and you have to make this sort of fairly like snap call, right? Like we're on all these, we're on all these targets, we're not selling, you have to buy this back and then somehow survive as a business.
Yeah.
That's a ton of cash you have to throw at fixing a problem that's burning today.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point in time when you kind of go from, cool, let's try to do these things, target, let's manufacture wherever we can, to saying, oh, actually, maybe we need to start developing some internal systems, even if that's like some spreadsheets used for planning or some processes, right? Like,
yeah.
Is there a moment that you can sort of picture when you guys went, we should start doing this a little bit less fast and loose?
Yeah, I think that was the pivotal moment. I think that was the pivotal moment there, where we're like, what do we do here? Why did this happen? Kind of doing a root cause analysis, and how do we fix this? And I think the fix there was, especially before AI, all of this, and DOSS, and it was just looking at the channels individually, B2B being the hardest. The volatility there, you could get one account and all of a sudden you have to fulfill 20,000 cases overnight. And it's like, what do we do here? And typically how we solve that is, with our team, we create a baseline. We figured out, okay, these are the stores that we're in now. Let's set the standard of what that looks like if we don't go up or down in case volume in any store, don't open any new doors. What does that look like? Create that. And then when it comes to kind of your stretch, layer in after that any kind of new planograms, placements, doors, and then really break it down per store, per case, per store, per week. And that's what we really did, and layered in all of that on our baseline of saying, hey, are we gonna hit our stretch budget? What do we do here? And what's our baseline? So if nothing happens and we fall flat, what should we actually be producing at the end of the day? And with that being said, I came in and I was like, lead times are 2 months, 3 months out. I'm like, how do we solve that issue to be able to pivot when you get that 20,000 case PO overnight? And a lot of that, if cash flow does permit, is floating that cash upstream towards those raw materials. And if expiration dates and everything are sound where you can keep that on hand and it's good to go, that's really how we reduce that down to 6-8 weeks turnaround time. Having a great relationship with our co-man to be able to be like, hey, we need line time ASAP. Can you give us a 6-week window where we can get fit in? And then knowing that you have those raw materials to go ahead and be able to produce and fulfill those POs. Those are the two biggest unlocks for us once we hit that kind of roadblock at Target and how to buy back. That portion of all that inventory, you figure out other channels that you try and sell them through and push promos, et cetera, D2C, Amazon specifically. But then thereafter, how do we solve this from happening again, was those two.
And how do you kind of take these learnings because you have 6 different products now?
Nine different flavors, I think 45 different SKUs. Yeah.
So you go from like 1 or 2 flavors to 9. That's obviously also another really big catalyst to go and replicate that exact exercise 9 times over. Mm-hmm. With a lot more unknowns about like whether consumers are going to like it and where it's going to work, and in some locations and others not. So was that another thing that then made you go from early planning to kind of working back production and then working with your suppliers, to then going a level further and maybe forecasting that out for a year or however long you can? I
mean, I think the biggest thing too with a lot of the stuff, it's just continuity in supply chain and raw materials. We try to cross over as many raw materials with our different SKUs as possible, so you can, one, reduce the amount of actual line items within a formulation, and 2, have redundancy there where you're not kind of finding 150 different raw materials. Because as DOSS, we sourced every single one by ourselves. It was an Excel spreadsheet. It worked, but it was a nightmare. But I think, coming back to your question, I don't know, the SKU complexity, looking at it and trying to think through it, it's a lot of just guesswork at the end of the day, because a lot of these channels, they're new. You don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to perform, and then doing a SKU split percentage based off the projected revenue with made up numbers, and it all ends up being made up at the end of the day. And it's like, oh, we're basing our decisions off of projections that we don't know if they're going to happen or not. How do we go about doing all this? And a lot of it is just gut feeling, guesswork, and the best educated guesses possible.
That's interesting. So when you kind of say the best educated guess is what I'm hearing, but tell me if I'm wrong, it's like you try to make sure that everything around the guess is almost as high quality as it can be. To your point, like you really understand which adaptogens you're buying from why, what the lead time is, how they taste, how they're likely to go and work, what that might look for projection, so that even though you're kind of making up these numbers on the fly, everything that flows from that isn't as much of a guess in the dark?
Yeah, I would say specifically when it comes to our ingredients, because of other war stories that I can probably get into, and if you want me to, our process of approving raw materials is super, super rigorous, and nothing touches the production floor anymore without going through several benchtop testing runs, because we had probably one of my toughest moments at DOSS. We had a production run of Golden Hour, which is our, I guess you could say it's our ginger lemon Moscow Mule SKU. And we had a shortage of our black tea. We sourced it out of Kenya, didn't make it through customs in time. We had line time reserved, all this stuff was happening, was not at production. Ended up sourcing another approved black tea extract. Wasn't benchtop tested. We just specs on paper looked perfect. We're like, okay, good to go. It's gonna get here tomorrow. Perfect, put it in. That batch ended up being so dark it looked like almost Guinness. And this is a light golden liquid. And we produced, I wanna say it was close to like 200,000 cans of this stuff. Yeah. Brutal. Flavor was great. Everything else was fine. Passed QC. We didn't catch it because it passed pH test, it passed our bricks test. Started rolling it out to retailers, selling it on D2C, had no idea. And I was like, this is when first started, I was like, oh, we're good, it passed everything. Nope, I get a ticket, and another ticket, and another ticket, all from customers like, oh, this is what's wrong with this liquid. And I was like, oh boy. We had to do an internal recall. Everything was fine quality-wise, so it wasn't like we had to do an FDA recall by any means, but we had to take all that product back in and figure out what we were gonna do. That experience alone, I was like, ops is not for me. I'm like, this is crazy. And so we ended up actually selling it to a third-party seller. Like, I ended up being like, Home Goods or Marshalls, and able to get, our money, or at least the cost of goods back for the materials. But that was definitely a learning lesson that I had, that coming back to your question about our raw materials and ingredients that we source, that is one thing we don't play around with, one thing we don't mess with. If it's not been tested, if it's not gone through benchtop testing by our CPO, myself, and our formulator, we'll cancel production and deal with the ramifications after that.
All right. This is like a couple of weeks in?
I think it was like my first month.
Great. I guess your CV is really up to date that weekend.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was like, oh.
So I guess like obviously a lot of discipline came into how you guys are doing the forecasting of things, how you're actually doing the process, and also in the craft of developing and testing the product. I heard you have a new product?
We do. You want to take a sip?
Yeah, cheers. Our cue card literally says cheers and take a sip. Also, I think we're breaking about 50 rules by drinking this. Damn, that is nice.
Right? It's better on ice. But this is our new product, this is our new line.
Social Spritz.
Social Spritz by DOSS. Our current line, our cocktail line, is in an 8-ounce can. It's a more viscous, denser liquid, sweeter, a one-for-one replacement to a cocktail with none of the alcohol. It has adaptogens like reishi, lion's mane, and L-theanine to give you a more relaxed, calm feel. We have 6 SKUs in that line, but this is the glove project. This has taken almost a year to complete since we first started this. But it is Social Spritz. It's a light, lively version of this. It's no alcohol, no caffeine, but it has L-theanine, L-tyrosine, ginseng, vitamin B6, and vitamin B12 in it to give you that light, lively lift without having the jitters, caffeine, and all that kind of stuff. But this is live at Total Wine right now, D2C, Amazon, slowly rolling out to Whole Foods near you.
When did you launch this?
This was, what is it now? about 4 weeks ago in Total
4 weeks ago
Wine.
was last
Yeah.
week. I guess, take me back through, you said, like, the months and years before launch week. Like,
Yeah.
what does it actually look like from your point of view in operations, right? Like touching on everything from the formulation to getting it in place to working with the retailers. Like, is that a well-oiled process now? What did it look like? What's maybe didn't quite go to plan?
Yeah. I would say non-alc in general has grown, and buyers in that category have definitely had more confidence. So this was a lot easier than our initial sell and push of core, our cocktail line. But with that being said, it is a completely new line. Buyers did not, there's no sell-through data, there was no data at all to show them being like, hey, this is gonna be a hit. They're trying to make money, we're trying to make money at the end of the day, and that's what they were wanting to know, if it's gonna sell. So that was the big push there. Luckily, we have a really good relationship with Total Wine specifically, and our 6-pack core line is their #1 seller in their non-alc set at Total Wine. So they were like gung-ho, tried it, the liquid, and I think that's maybe ranting a little bit, but one thing that I've learned within the operations and learning from kind of our sales team, and treat buyers, if you ever are in contact with them, as a partner. Have them taste the new products you're developing. Have them kind of look at the packaging, what's in their sets, what's missing. I think a lot of it just seems very, very transactional a lot of the times when you're talking to, Missy at Target or so, all the different buyers there. But they're partners. They want to see you succeed just as much as everyone else in your company. Use them, utilize them, have them give you feedback. What's going to work? What hasn't worked? Has been one takeaway with pushing a new line like this into retail shelves in general that I've learned from DOSS, but probably meandered off the path of your question.
No, actually, because one of the things I was going to ask you about is, like, you sort of glossed over it, but it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? Like, you're developing this new product, you think it's going to work, but then the folks who need to stock it want to see it work. And so I was actually going to ask you, like, how do you solve for, hey, this is new and, you know us, we do great products.
Yeah.
But to get somebody to actually take enough of a chance to help you get that data, to help you get the launch right, because it's so important for any new SKU, especially if you spend a year developing it, right?
Yeah. I would like what you said exactly. The chicken and the egg portion of it, it's when you're developing a new product, what's the market look like? Where's the white space? What are you creating? Is it going to fill a hole, or is it going to be redundant? How do we make something that people will want, one, that's going to look and taste great, two, but how is the economics going to work behind it? And I think that was the biggest issue that we had with DOSS in general. We were looking at THC for a little bit. That was going to be a side project. I said, absolutely not. I'm not dealing with legislation. I will walk out if we have to do anything around THC and Delta 9. Then we landed on social spritz. We saw on the market, everything in the market right now with non-alc has melatonin, magnesium, CBD. When I go to a bar with friends and I don't want to drink, I also don't want to go to sleep. And so we really wanted to make a product during the day, during that time at a concert where you're not feeling like you're drinking, but you also, I'm like, I don't want to sink into a couch at the same time and have my magnesium start kicking in before I go to bed. And so we made this drink to fill that white space. And so we started off and wanted to figure out a price point where this would be accessible to the consumers. But at the same time, we wanted to make this liquid taste amazing, just like all the rest of our line. And like I said, we don't compromise when it comes to ingredient sourcing.
It's really great, by the way.
Thank you.
Like, I tried the other ones, so it's like a favorite now.
Yeah, lemon elderflower is my favorite. I think I have 2 a day. Like I actually love this. I love this product. But coming back to
Your office fridge has to be the best thing in the world.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Right.
Always stocked. But the economics with liquid weren't there. Your price point on shelf is a big thing to consider and where you're at. And we kept going back and forth because we didn't want to sacrifice the taste of the liquid. And so we had a low budget for functional beverage. And so my CPO and I, we pushed back. We're like, we can't make a good product and we're not going to release it. Like, that's not what's going to happen. Got a budget increase on the liquid. Did a lot of sourcing work, a lot of redundancy work, a lot of negotiation with our suppliers on how to really reduce the cost of the ingredients that we wanted to include, as well as the functional portion of this drink. lively lifted. We want people to feel that, not just say it. And so at the end of the day, circling back all around with all these different decisions, that was the biggest thing. It was just running around. How much does this cost? How does this taste? Going through version after version on formulation was super, super tough. We're supposed to do it in 6 months, came out a year later. But that's the story of launching kind of a new line, new product, especially when it's very, very different from what we currently make, different from the suppliers that we currently source from. And then there is one good story about this one. Make sure you check particle size and spec sheets before you go into production. What I mean by that, we went to our first production run. L-tyrosine was a new functional thing that I started using in this beverage. The particle size was slightly too big than the filtration method that we typically use. So our first production run, we had it filter out half of all the percentage of the tyrosine that was in it because our filtration method was not right.
That's a lot of money that you're just kind of...
Yeah, we were at, I think it was 28% scrap on that run. First run too. That was tough. So
is that when you go and work with your co-man to go and figure out, how do we change the filtration process or the steps or?
Yep, exactly. And so we actually did a quick run right before Expo West 2. That co-man didn't flag this issue over to us before we went into the full first production run. So we could have caught it. Definitely do due diligence on your co-man too, because we did a last minute one right before Expo, and then we ran into that issue. But like I said, launching a product is fun. It's fun to post on LinkedIn, but there are a lot of issues that come with it. And like I said, I always say, hope for the best, plan for the worst.
I guess the side of this this is awesome to hear, by the way, because the side of it that we see with DOSS obviously is, you guys going into more and more doors. Mm-hmm. That share of retail just exploding over the time we've been working together for you guys, doing so much D2C and Amazon still. And we sort of see this when we're okay, there's more products going into more doors with, a huge amount of materials to manage in your BOM. I don't think until you kind of told the story that we even realized how much work goes into getting to that point beyond maybe the sampling.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool. I guess on the expanding, new product lines and new channels, what's that like? Because that's also your job.
Yeah. I think expanding, one big thing that when I came into the SWAT, Amazon was a channel that we were exploring, but I think it was super underutilized, and I think it's really, really hard to navigate for a lot of brands because there's so many rules, regulations, weird things that they just don't make it easy to navigate the FBA portal by any means. But what we were doing, we were packaging all of our cases in Amazon into corrugate boxes, then palletizing those, then shipping those, and then paying placement fees on top of that. It was a whole nightmare process. The margins were terrible, but I've seen all these other beverage brands kind of kill it in that channel. I'm wondering, what are we doing wrong here? What we figured out after a lot of diligence and just working with operators like everyone here and asking questions, how do you guys make this work for you? Which I don't think we do enough. We stay in our little bubble, but that's how I found a lot of my, I've only been in CPG beverage for 2 years, which is crazy to think of. It's felt like an eternity, but I've learned so much through other operators' experiences that I then apply to DOSS, which have helped me tenfold by just listening and understanding. So we ended up palletizing case by case, just exactly how it comes from the co-manufacturer, making sure that all the sticker and sticker and label requirements were good to go. And then we started just shipping full pallets. They would then take it off, sell it as a single unit. And our Amazon has grown, I think, 390% year over year, just because of that one unlock, saving on corrugate fees, and then just the simplistic process of us being able to ship a full pallet of our product without having to pick, pack, ship.
This sounds really easy, but it effectively means there's an additional type of product you need to track, which is the pallet with the special packaging and labeling for Amazon that you need to like then again pull through all the way to production, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Damn.
So it's different too because you have to split the exact same pack out format. So say if we have 12 pack cans, right? Then you have to worry about the buy box and fighting third-party sellers. What we did there was we had to create custom packouts for Amazon specifically and then change the GTIN and barcodes on those. We sell 12-pack loose to wholesale through KeHE Unify, but they're also able to sell through to other sellers, typically who buy that and then resell on Amazon. So it's a lot of differentiating your SKU set that you sell on Amazon so you can go after 3Ps and always hold a buy box, not worry about inventory sitting in FBA warehouse, and pushing more ad spend towards those products because you know you're always going to be in stock, you're always going to have the buy box, and then after that unlock, it exploded.
And then so the bit where my mind is wandering, and I'm curious if you've kind of looked at this, right? But like, so you have effectively this like Cambrian explosion of combinations to deal with, to track, to understand, to like track whether you have issues, but then also to go and see opportunities. Mm-hmm. Are you pulling in to some degree AI to go and look at that stuff? Does that work? Is it the quality of the data there? Like, how do you? Because you still have a really small team dealing with those operations, right?
Yeah, we have 2 people in operations.
You're 50% of that?
Yeah.
Nice.
No, I think that's the hardest part too, right? You have finance who's on you about month-end close. You have all these due diligence reports, all this kind of stuff that you're required to get done, and you're pulling data from a 3PL portal, a warehouse, here and there, and it's all coming in different formats, different sheets, different everything. I think using AI is helpful for redundant and repeatable tasks. The edge cases and nuances about operations, I've been through 17 production runs, and every time I learn something new, AI is not going to know what to do in that instance. Where it does work is the repeatable tasks that are super manual, time consuming, and also consuming data. The one thing you have to do is train and reiterate again and again, and also know what that right output looks like to make sure AI is set up correctly, because garbage in is garbage out, and I don't think AI is stealing any of our jobs anytime soon, but that's just my take on it.
Cool. And I don't want to make this a DOSS pitch, but I guess when you're kind of talking garbage in, garbage out, it's something that we strongly believe in C as well, right? It's like you need to have your data in one place where it is constructed in such a way that you can actually have it consumed by AI and by humans at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not enough to just have your products as you sell them, you actually want to have an item master that helps you understand all the way how these things work. Yeah. If you compare where you were at maybe a year and a half ago when all this was spreadsheets and where you're at today, is there a lot more you can do as soon as you like master a process to kind of use automation, use workflows, to use AI, to use like anything to do some of that lifting for you? Has that been a big difference?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think.
Imagine if you said no.
I know. But
sorry.
No, that's wrong. I would say, with that being said, ask the question one more time.
So you said garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And you also talked about, okay, I can go and use AI and automate things if I know what good looks like. Mm-hmm. But I've done it like 17 times. There's always things that come in without any judgment. So I guess my question is, if you compare where you were at a year and a half ago, and a lot of this stuff was in your head, in some spreadsheets, you're kind of doing it, to now when you have a handful of systems, one of which is DOSS, that you can go in and like pull this information from. Is that what's helped you kind of do this size of the lean team to use a bunch of AI?
Yeah, 100%. I think looking at that, I've been pretty OCD, and I think that's helped me in operations. I love my SOPs, I love my processes, very matter of fact, straight to the point. And because of that structure, I'm like, what's the nomenclature we're gonna use? Always. I'm like, we always have to have some way, structure of naming something to make sure everyone stays on track, it all stays trackable. I can look at a SKU and know exactly what the pack out is, what the flavor is, how many cans are in it. But that also helped when AI kind of blew up. I've already had it in the structure where it's like, okay, you have every cell, every column, easy enough to upload a master item sheet into DOSS specifically when we did our implementation, all ready to go. And having that now so structured and then being able to feed that into AI and other platforms like DOSS made it so much easier, because I think the hardest thing is the data cleanup in general. It's the thing that takes the most time.
Yeah, and otherwise if you are trying to run something through an LLM and it doesn't actually understand what it is, it'll make things up. That's the worst thing, right?
Yep.
It won't just tell you I don't know, it'll make things up.
Yeah.
So you've made that into a rule now for the rest of the team as well? If I kind of think about product development and kind of, okay.
Yeah, so every time anybody does a new SKU request, marketing wants to make a new pack out of some sort, whatever, they go right into Claude, and there's a MD file with an SOP of our nomenclature procedures, and we'll spit out a perfect SKU ready to go that then they'll send over to me to get ready in Shopify, DOSS, R3PL, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a nice repeatable process that AI is actually really good for.
Cool. And so as you're kind of looking ahead at the next couple of years, are there areas that you're not doing a lot today with AI where you think you're going to be pushing more on the next kind of weeks, months, and years?
We utilize Claude as a company in general. I think a big thing that we're going to be utilizing AI for, marketing, yes, it takes a lot of reiteration, it takes a lot of time, but like throwing something in a quick deck for an investor, I know like our CMO, she focuses so much on these investor decks, but I'm like, this is a repeatable thing that we do again and again and again. We just upload it with new data. Utilizing skills for repeatable tasks or something that I'm having the entire team create one skill a week. Try to do it, repeat it. And it's like, create one skill. Think of one thing that you do again and again that's repeatable, create a skill, iterate, test it. It's gonna save you so much time. If you take these 2 hours right now to do it, it's gonna save tenfold on the back end. And so I have all the team with their specific functions figure out something that you can create a skill out of and utilize it. And the other thing is, I always keep Claude open on a second screen. I'm like, if you guys aren't keeping Claude on a second screen, like you're gonna fall behind. And it's like, just play, even if it's like our boomer users, like I like to call them, they don't wanna do it. But I'm like, just keep the screen open, test it, play around with it, ask it a few questions, something like, but I think repeatable tasks are there. The things that we won't use it for, I think security is a huge thing. So financials and really figuring out a way to feed it information while being able to redact any, I guess, harmful or bad data that you don't want it to give it access to. I think that's going to be the biggest thing, is creating the guardrails around AI. How do we do that? How is that going to be implemented into bigger companies? In a startup, it's easy because the team's small and there's not anything crazy going on. But I mean, it's going to take years for other companies like that to create a security structure around the data and access that AI has. So I think we're going to have jobs for a while.
I'm not going to bore anyone with this here, but like one of the things that we think a lot about with DOSS is like governance is actually a really important thing as you build systems of record that use AI, because you want as many people as possible putting really well structured data and context in the one place you're trying to run this for your operations. Mm-hmm. It helps. It just helps you make better decisions. But you also want to make sure only the right people can see the right thing.
Yeah.
And this like entire graph that you're creating isn't being used by someone to do things that they shouldn't be seeing.
Yeah.
Like your co-man has access, great. You want them to see their own price list and what they're required to do and the S&OPs they have to fulfill. You don't want them to see that you have another co-man as a backup who produces in different ways.
No, exactly.
So that's like a tricky thing. The other reflection I had, I have actually created a routine in Claude where it goes and looks at where I spend my time every week and then comes back to me with suggestions for things it could automate or improve. So even this whole thing about like create a skill a week, you can create a skill to create the basis of a skill every week.
Yeah.
Which just turns you into like the orchestrator of skills.
No, one thing, I was talking to our head of HR and she's an AI fanatic too, and we're the only ones that really kind of geek out about it. But what she did, we use Granola as a note-taking record with all of our stuff. And so with that being said, all of our meetings are recorded. But one thing she did, and she's like, as an operator, she was like, have you asked it to create a doc about why you make the decisions that you make? Go through all of my notes, go through all of my transcripts and records, Because as operators, we're making calls like this but why? It's all in our head. We're like, this is a split call. It's because X, Y, and Z. And when you're explaining it to, an operations coordinator or someone that reports to you, you kind of give them the lowdown of, okay, we went through this process. This was a nightmare. We're not going to do it again. And this is why I'm making that decision. But where does that live besides in our heads? And so she was like, she did it as head of HR. And she was just like, it pulled out a great document of why I do the things I do and make the decisions I make. So good. Which I was like, that's so, because it just lives in our head. We're not putting this tribal knowledge anywhere. I don't think most operators spend the time to do that.
But I think it's really great for your culture. It's like one of the best things I ever heard from a mentor was don't judge the outcome of a decision. Like don't judge a decision by its outcome. Yeah. Judge it by like the frame of reference you used when making a decision. What was it? The heuristic. You don't, unless you go and put that somewhere in writing, you can trace it back and go look at it. You're never going to know.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have this incident you had with Target. You'll tell somebody else, like, don't do it this way.
Yeah.
But that's it. You're just telling them what? If you tell them, don't do it this way, this is what happened, you're actually equipping them to go and make a decision. If the decision doesn't turn out to be the right one, fine. You just refine the heuristic.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can go really deep on this. I would love to open it up for questions. I think we've spent a good half an hour or so going into some more stories. Go ahead.
So you're talking about guardrails, right? Setting up guardrails with the AI. What kind of guardrails are you talking about? Like, are you talking about customer level data, or like, for example, on the D2C side? Or are you talking about like what generally?
Yeah, I think data in general of what you typically don't want anyone else access to, just the permission levels in general of, say for a Google Drive, for instance, right? There's HR data, there's financial data, there's fundraising data, all this stuff. But when you allow Claude to access Google Drive, it can see everything and pull all that information in a folder. So when you're setting it up, giving it access and running it through where it pulls data and what it's allowed to, creating those guardrails around exactly what it's pulling. Or even, for instance, if it's not HR data, for instance, if it's just bad data that's stale and you don't want it to pull that, how do we make guardrails so when it goes in there and we want to automate something, how do we get it so it doesn't pull the old inventory sheet versus the new one? And going about that, yeah.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is because there are there's at least one person on my team who's very pro AI. I'm kind of a Luddite myself. I want to kill the machine, but kind of been thinking about making peace with the machine a little bit in the meantime, right? And so she sent me over this document that talks about how when you first start using Claude, the thing you should do is create a folder, and that's the folder that Claude has access to. And so I haven't quite gotten to the point of putting stuff in that folder yet, and the reason why is because I'm thinking to myself, do I want it to know who my D2C customers are? Do I want it to know their email addresses? Do I want it to know their phone numbers? Do I want them to know their mailing addresses? But at the same time, I need some kind of differentiator, right? Some kind of concatenate, right? So that ultimately I can find out spending patterns. I can find out, LTV. I can find out all of these different things, time to delivery, all of that by customer across like long periods of time. Mm-hmm. And so just wondering what your idea around those guardrails are.
Yeah, I think we went into this and giving Claude access to our Shopify was one thing that we debated as a company for a while because we were able to pull reports in 2 seconds. Hey, what's our top selling SKU right now? And so I think it's a lot about the back end and how you legally, there had to be a disclaimer put on the website, like all this kind of stuff that went into it. So definitely check with counsel before integrating anything. What I found, there needs to be a disclaimer somewhere. I don't know the legal jargon, but I was like, hey, I want to do this because it's going to make our lives easier. But when it comes to the rest of the Shopify data, there are different access levels you can give it once you make that plugin. And so you can turn off what it's able to access, what it's able to do. And that's how we kind of got around some of the legal, like, potential issues that you can have when connecting customer data to an AI system.
Yeah, right.
I was like, this is not legal advice.
Yeah, please do not.
No.
But I think really sort of small scale, like one system of record for, say, your orders, that's Shopify. You can do pulls and then try to anonymize them and then pull them in and still get the things into it, right? So like when it's a customer list, what you want to do is remove identifiable customer information. So you have all your orders, you know that it's customer 494. You don't know that it's Jane Doe living in this address.
Right.
That works up to a certain level. As soon as you're starting to deal with hundreds of doors, thousands of doors, kind of a bunch of channels, lots of SKUs, like it becomes too big to do that. Then effectively what you need is a system that can do that for you. And that's like when you move from guardrails to governance. Guardrails is like, how do I not get sued? How do I not share anything to Anthropic that I don't want them to train data on? Governance is, all this stuff is in here. It can't humanly be handled, but I want to make sure that actually as I'm going and extracting insights from this or taking actions, I don't do certain things that are bad. That's a little bit the transition. I think traditionally that's been really hard because the systems that give you governance try really hard to lock you in.
Right.
Like the trade-off is like, we're giving you great, your accounts are up to date, all your data lives here, by the way, you can't get it out.
Yeah.
That's starting to change. So there's a whole kind of new generation of software that tries to strike that balance better, specifically because operators like you want to be able to ask the question and get an answer.
Yep.
And if we can't do that for you, then you will leave.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly why. Like we're a customer of DOSS, and it's on them if there's any legal stuff. They have all of our customer data and everything too, so it's on them now.
Well, yeah, that always helps.
Yeah, go ahead.
A quick question. So first of all, thanks. Good insights, appreciated. In thinking about supply chain end to end, think about upstream to downstream because you guys do manufacturing, you guys do the brick and mortar and e-commerce sales. Have you applied, and this is a question for both, have you applied AI as an enabler for S&OP planning, supply demand planning, and if so, how accurate has it given you the results?
Can I repeat the question quickly so we have it on the...
Yep.
So the question is, have you used AI for S&OP in kind of supply and demand planning processes, both directly to consumers and then maybe wholesale B2B?
Correct. And what's the accuracy rate?
And what's the accuracy?
Yeah. I would say we've used it. So right now with us, we don't have the forecasting module in our process. And so what we do currently, we did set up an S&OP process with Claude, creating a kind of network of Excel spreadsheets, pulling in data from velocity data, sell-through data, creating that baseline like I talked about, and then leveling in promos, end caps, our stretch budget, et cetera, into this network of Excel sheets where we kind of accumulate. And Claude's been great at developing the foundation for that Excel network, pulling in data from different sources, and then giving us kind of a percentage estimate of where we see SKUs going depending on which channel that they're in and what kind of pack out we need. I mean, I would say it's probably usually around 75% accurate right now. There are a lot of tweaks that we can make and edit, but a lot of it, again, it's the data that I get from my sales team isn't typically the best data in the world, and so that's where we kind of see shortfalls of pulling that from, and how we get that. Are we looking at the velocity at the DC, or are we looking at spins data? But when you look at spins within beverage, you don't get full access to Walmart or Sprouts or certain stores, so you're missing that sell-through, or CVS, for instance. So it's like, okay, let's go back to the next best thing. Let's look at the depletion data at all the DCs, and that's through and through what we can kind of rely on more real time than the sell-through data there. But that's typically how we've used AI to help forecast. I know there's a lot of platforms out there that have popped up that do demand forecasting and use Claude as a base underneath that make it super, super easy. Haven't touched that quite yet. Yeah.
I'll briefly answer, but I guess from two angles. The previous company I built was specifically demand and supply forecasting for online first brands. This was like pre-AI. We spend a lot of time effectively trying to fine tune a general model. And like in most cases, regression worked much better than any kind of machine learning when you do all these like hyper parameterizations and like ways to try and fill in gaps that ultimately are gaps in the quality of your data. So I think accuracy very often comes back to the quality of the data. I think what we've seen at DOSS with doing this is a handful of things. One is you want to have a really solid, good baseline. You always need that. And so part of that is like, where can you get the data? And if you can't get the direct data, where can you triangulate it very well? The other thing that we probably spend every single sales process talking to people about and we implement is we cannot do any decent demand planning or help you do it until you have an item master, until you have a good overview of like all these really boring things that nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, well, maybe you do. Nobody wakes up and goes, I really wish I had a good product master. But actually, if you don't have that, it's super hard to go and do accuracy, and every single step that you move in your supply chain, you lose it, and every single step that you move closer to the consumer, you lose it. And so from our angle on accuracy, have we seen 100% accuracy? Absolutely not. Have we seen people get to really good manageable accuracy where they can make expensive business decisions with confidence? Yes. That's typically been downstream from bringing all their data in one place or making sure that it's like legible within DOSS from wherever it lives.
Great, thank you. And you know, in general, your options shrink as you come upstream to downstream, and hence this becomes so critical to solve for. So appreciate all the answers. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys for your time. I think there was really helpful tips. What was most surprising to me was how small the operations team that you described was, just because operations is like requires a lot of manpower uptime. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you keep your team lean? And like, you know, obviously, you know, you're considering people, profits, processes. Like when you have a team, and let's say you have a direct report under you, when you feel like a process is not being like followed by the person, but then there's like a dependency on that person. Let's say if it's like a lean team, like what do you optimize for, like first out of like those three?
I'm going to repeat it quickly. I'm going to summarize that as like, how do you keep a team lean as you grow? And how do you then make sure that like the quality within that team for various handoffs keeps being up to a standard that you understand how it's working? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, the second part of that, I know it's like two questions, but
that's fine.
Yeah, the second part of it is like, you know, you're like at any given point, you're managing and you're balancing like people, profits, and processes, and obviously processes break. So, you know, do you attribute it to the person? I don't know. Like I feel like as a leader, you know, you wanna like protect your people, but you also want to protect your processes, and that obviously like finance is always on our you know,
Yes.
as operators. So.
I take the same kind of outlook as you. I protect I think people are amazing. I like to see everyone's perspective, and my team is very coveted to me. So I tend to make sure and look at kind of the whole picture first holistically. What's this person doing? What are the expectations set? What happens if something does break? Do they have a process to follow? If it's not working, is there a catch-all at the back end for them to figure it out why it's not working themselves? If there's not, I typically look at the process and like assess. I like to assess myself first. I'm like, is this process too hard to follow? Is it too complex? Does it need to be broken up? Is it something that I'm doing that I can control sitting there? And then has it been then after that setting the expectation for that person? If I go through those first two steps and then I kind of deduce that it's realistically the person, then you go and, you know, in a one-on-one or implementation, you know, if it goes down to a PIP or whatever it happens to be, really try to bring that person back up and explain the back end of why this process broke, what happened. So I guess people, including myself, look at that first, then process, and then, you know, finance can wait.
I think there was another question out there.
Kind of asked exactly where I was going at. Keeping a team lean, like how do you, where do you make up time while you're keeping the team so lean and you're growing at the clip you're growing?
So where do you make up time when you keep your team lean and you grow so quickly?
Yeah, I think my brain always works is I always look at everything that it could be done better with more efficient. And so I'm always thinking, and maybe I work too much too, because at night sometimes I'll be like, I
Safe
can't,
space.
Yeah, I can't sleep. I'm like, oh, let's get on Cloud and figure this out. And then like before AI, I'm like, let's just let's talk to Claude, let's see what we can do. How can we make this easier? How we can make this better? If I spend this 1 to 2 hours right now to figure this out, how much time is that going to save me? And looking at kind of keeping a lean team in general, with the SWAT, we've had a good amount of turnover, and that it sucks. That it hits hard. You lose a person. You've invested so much time, knowledge into this one person, and they end up leaving. And so I ended up looking at how much time I spent doing this. And I'm like, can I create a system that knows this, can keep this, and there's no risk of them disappearing on me? And so taking that time and knowledge, I'm like, okay, like I said, with the repeatable tasks, yes. And looking at those things that take me way longer than they should, trying to create a process or a skill a week or training and retraining a project, for instance, how to do a certain thing where I don't have to hire another head. And honestly, losing people, SKU expansion, omni-channel distribution, all that kind of stuff, that's when it kind of switched over, and I was like, okay, me and one other person, it's not working anymore. We're dropping the ball here, we're not putting 100% into other areas, and that's when I started looking at, light ERP, inventory management systems, and where eventually, about a little bit over a year ago, found DOSS. And so that's just kind of that trigger that I had. I'm like, I can't keep doing it by myself. I'm a little bit of a workaholic, stay up at night, but that's not sustainable. I'm gonna burn out, and it's not fun. I love ops, but not that much.
I think it's also, if you kind of ask people in our team what drives us, a lot of that is exactly what you just said. It's, can we help? We work with very, very cool brands like you guys. Can we help you grow faster, more profitably, and at the same time, maximize as a human being and as a leader what you can go out and achieve?
Yeah.
And spend as much time as possible on stuff that requires your judgment, like developing a new product, not on some of the other things. A question I had is, as you've kind of looked at the growth until now, anything that's really surprised you since you started that you just had not anticipated at all, and that's maybe helpful for somebody who, you're sitting in the audience 2 years ago, 3 weeks in, you just had a first fire drill.
Yeah.
What do you wish you'd known from someone like you?
I think when I first started, I was really angsty. I was like, everything has to go right all the time, or I'm failing. And I think that's the one thing about the whole point about this, right? Having these open conversations is we don't get to interact with a lot of people. We kind of stay in our ops bubble, but it's day after day where you take hit after hit and you feel like you're kind of failing as an operator and putting out all these fires and always I don't know. And I think it's nice to be able to explain this. And whenever I talk to an operator, it's always great because you see the smile light up on their face when they see a similar problem that you've seen. And we're all trying our absolute best. I know the companies that we work for, we want to see them succeed. Early startup, you have equity, you want it to, grow and be amazing. And so we're all in it to win it. We're all there working towards the same goal. But I think if I took that same perspective that I know now of not everything's going to go right all the time, you're gonna mess up. But the one thing to do is admit you're wrong, learn from the mistake, and don't make it again. And that's what I wish I would have told myself when I first started all this.
Cool. And by the way, you did.
Yeah.
Super. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi. So I wanted to also wonder, what are some decisions within the production phase that you would still not trust an AI co-pilot to design?
So what are some decisions in a production phase that you don't trust an AI co-pilot to make?
That's tough. I mean, I still run simultaneously a production run in my own Excel just to check the numbers on my own, so I don't fully trust an AI to do a production yet. Our formulations are super, super complex, and it's a lot of food science that goes behind it, and one keystroke or trigger, one bad input can have me ordering $30,000 worth of mushrooms that we don't need. So again, like I said, I don't trust AI fully with something super, super complex like projections or doing a production run in general. But I am simultaneously training it to get there, if that makes sense. Don't trust it yet, but with iteration, testing, once I can run it a couple times without it failing at certain points, then I'll be like, okay, we're good to go. But layering in safeguards on top of that to make sure at certain, I guess, checkpoints along the way within a production run, you're able to have a human check that versus AI.
So like your ideal end state is trust and verify from here?
Yeah.
And today you're kind of in the show me what you can do, but I don't trust it. Okay.
Exactly. Especially with bigger projects that take bigger money, and if it fails, it makes bigger mistakes.
So maybe, do you mind if, Jasmine, if I go a bit deeper on the question, 'cause I think it's really good. So what would be the things that you would see that would make you move towards trust? What's kind of like maybe some of the things you'd have to see across those couple of runs?
I think just good outputs. If it matches my numbers, and I can be wrong.
Such a classical ops answer. If it matches my numbers,
if it matches my numbers, I trust it. And if it can do that multiple times in a row, I'd put my money on it. But there's still, I don't know. There's still this thing in me where I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be right. And then if the one time it's not right, like, it's on you. It's on your head. Your head's on the chopping block at that point. So it's always very, very cautiously moving through this AI wave day by day.
Also, it does remain, art and science, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about product development. Cool. Anybody else? We've got some time and lots to cover. Yes.
Right. So this is less on the technical side, but more on like mentality and like operational goals. So how do you stay like fulfilled in operations when other functions like growth and like community building seems more like visible and exciting and like creative? And the second part to that is
Can I repeat the first part first? Because you're a little bit far, so I want to make sure I repeat it correctly.
yeah,
So how do you stay fulfilled in operations when
when other like functions like growth and like community building and like products seems more like visible and creative and like more exciting.
Okay.
And the second part is like where have you applied creativity in operations and how does that work like in practice?
Cool. So how do you stay fulfilled in operations when there's more visibility for other roles like growth and community and more creative kind of, and then how do you find creativity in operations and in that role? Is that
Yeah,
the?
where have you applied creativity in that way?
Cool.
I would say the mentality that I keep to be fulfilled is I do enjoy silence. And I think with operators, if there's no pings, there's no nothing going on, you're like, yes. And I think that's the gratification that you get as an operator. You're never going to get someone like, oh, hip, hip, hooray, like there's nothing going wrong. It's like there should never be anything going wrong, but there's always stuff going wrong, right? So when that silence comes, I've really relished in that aspect. And then when it comes along where it's like product launches like this, where I'm like, I was behind the scenes, like I was at the co-manufacturer. I got to see the process of how it was made, how it was done, be there for the tastings and all that kind of stuff, and then see it on shelf. I don't know, I feel more proud of that. And as a kid, I always loved, I think the show is called How It's Made, but just seeing the manufacturing process behind it and then how it gets to your table or your fridge or whatever. And that's kind of what keeps me going and gives me that satisfaction. I'm like, I made this, And then how I apply creativity, as an ops person, typically we like to stay in our lanes, but at DOSS got the opportunity to bleed over into a lot of other departments, especially when it comes to packaging and design, because I'm sourcing all the materials and everything like that. I do get, what limited input brand does give me. I get to be there in the product meetings, in the brand meetings, being like, hey, this is possible, but probably not the best decision to make because, you're the one supplying it from the mill. Or if we take this photo and put it on a direct print can, it's gonna look shitty at the end of the day. And so we can't do it. And so it's about how can you bleed into those other things while kind of still staying in your lane, I guess you could say, and then applying that creativity there. And then another example was just like the first can that we made of this was, I think it was Crayola Neon Orange, and it came out of production. It was so bad, and I was like, I went to my brand team, like, what is this? Like, you guys did the delta variance between what the colors looked like. I'm like, they even took like a color gun to see what the delta was. I'm like, this came out of a Crayola box. I'm like, this is terrible. I'm like, this needs to be more peach. And so being able to take the feedback that you hear from friends and family and then be like, Brand, what is going on here? But yeah, that's more or less the way I try to apply my creativity and poke into other functions that I'm not a part of.
Yes.
If I can just offer a comment to what he was just saying right now. One of the beautiful things about
Let me give you this so you catch it.
One of the beautiful things about operations is that everybody knows what finance does, everybody knows what marketing does, but nobody knows what ops does. So you can almost do whatever you want.
Agreed. I think my mom's a hygienist and she tells my entire life story to every one of her patients. And she's like, my son does operations, but I still don't know what that means. So every time. And I'm like, there's no point of explaining it.
Yeah.
Got one more. So, like speaking of the new product launch, are there specific things that, obviously you went through some horror stories, but are there specific things that, like a handful of things that maybe you've learned through all these product launches, maybe new SKU introductions that now, in the next round that you're gonna kind of take with you, and then at the same time, are there specific tasks that maybe you found that you could kind of use AI for those specific things, specifically when it comes to launching a new product or launching a new SKU or new flavor?
Yeah, one thing that comes instantly to mind would be, you would think it would be a simple solve, but we have our cartons that our cans are in, and then we have a picture of the can that's on the carton, and then we have the actual can that's in the carton. How do we, and we have one color that we're doing all of them with, how do we match that color? What looks more like the can? Are we matching the color of the carton itself to the color of the can? Are we matching the can that's actually on the picture of the can that's on the carton to the color of the can? And how do we increase or decrease the hues to make sure that it still stands out on the carton? But just simplifying that process, because it was tribal knowledge, and just writing it down, be like, we're matching the picture as close to the can in the box and change the hue on the outside of the box. Something super simple, but something that we learned from this run. And it was just like the process of deciding how to do that. What was the second part to your question?
The AI part, like what can you like use AI moving forward, and then like just in general from kind of like expanding and introducing new products, like is there anything from your position that you're kind of, okay, these are kind of a handful of things that I've learned that I can kind of expect moving forward, and then you can kind of get ahead of the curve?
Yeah. One thing that I've been utilizing AI a lot for, especially Claude, is creating artifacts in Claude. And so just in general, a barcode generator to be GS 128 compliant with Target and Walmart. Like just doing that and being able to put in, okay, I'm producing on this date, this is the expiration, this is the lot number, this is the batch number. Throwing that in there, and then we have different, 20, 30 different SKUs and packets that we do at one production run. Going through, and like before I got there, they were manually making these stickers in a Word document. And that was just the legacy before that. I'm like, how, this takes forever. Like little things like that. I'm like, why are we doing this way? And then creating artifact within Claude that then you upload all of your barcodes, GTIN numbers, everything from your master data sheet. That please keep that clean because that is your holy grail. And then it being able to spit out perfectly compliant barcodes that we can use again and again. But that's one way we've automated the process just in general with the SKU complexity that's been growing. Yeah.
I had such bad flashbacks. I've had to do barcodes in manufacturing for things where you want to track lots.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we do it's all lot tracking.
And we made them in Canva.
Yeah, we did Word. It was a Word document
It's
for each
horrible.
barcode. And then every production run you go in, have to update, change. Nope.
Yeah.
Claude has made that 10 times easier.
Don't do that. Anything else? Any other questions for Antonio? Super. Well, in that case, thank you so very much for joining us so far tonight. We're going to be here a while longer. There are a number of DOSS people out here. I'm just going to ask you if you can briefly kind of show who you are so folks know how to grab you. We're all really friendly. We spend our lives trying to talk to operators about building businesses. So please, we're not here to sell you. We're super happy to talk with you through what you might be worried about, what you might be experiencing, what you might want to know. If you do have operational issues that are so overwhelming they stop your growth, definitely speak to us. We specialize in helping you be successful here. And otherwise, thanks again for coming down. Thanks for being really generous at your questions, sharing your insights, what you want to learn. thank you so much for taking the time out here tonight and kind of showing us a lot of your experience. And thanks specifically to Mina and our team for organizing tonight and getting us all here. Thank you. Thank you, sir. That's so good.
Right?
Holy
It's better
shit.
even cold.
Yeah, so the one thing is like I noticed that the can even like continued warming up once I opened it, but it was awesome. We completely went off script. Which is awesome.
Completely.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. That's great.
It
I was
like
trying to track. I was like,